When he finally gave in, his surrender was broadcast throughout Spain. It encouraged resistance everywhere to the army coup. The anarchists stormed the artillery depot. The government tried to contain the situation by sending loyal civil guards, but crowds of people seized substantial quantities of weapons. For the first time in Barcelona, the people armed themselves. This was a serious dilemma for the authorities of Catalonia. The region was governed by liberal politicians, the voice of the middle class. But the rebellion had been put down by anarchists with other working-class support and the police force. The politicians had kept their heads down. Catalonia's president, Luis Companys, faced the situation virtually alone, apart from his police chief, Frederico Escofet.
I
went to see the president and I said, all right, the rebellion has been put down. There's only the odd patch of local fighting, but of minor importance. And then he said, all right, yes, Escofet, that's fine. But the CNT-FI now rule the streets.
The CNT-FI, armed anarchist organizations dominant in the streets, made the government powerless. This was the awful dilemma. If the legitimate administration wanted to restore its normal authority, Escofet's men would have had to turn on the very comrades in arms who had helped save the Republic.
I told the president, how can you hope to fight these people? We'd have to have a fight as fierce as the one we've just had, and we've got so many dead and wounded. Besides, they have fought side by side with those people. How can you ask me to order them to fight against them? I'm quite sure that even if I did, they would not obey me.
What happened in Barcelona was critical for the development of the war. The right-wing army rebellion had created a revolutionary fervor of resistance. The army surrender in Barcelona released forces that the ordinary democratic republic could not contain. While the rebellion's defeat in Barcelona was the republic's first victory of the war, Madrid, the capital, was in suspense. On the morning of the 19th of July, the new Prime Minister Giral had at last given the order to arm the people. The Socialist and Anarchist trade unions were issued with 65,000 rifles, but only 5,000 rifles had bolts, and you cannot fire a gun without its bolt. The missing parts were in the Montaña barracks in a dominant, threatening position near the center of Madrid. The commander refused to hand them over, so the barracks were stormed. Very soon the white flag appeared. One section of the barracks seemed to want to give up, but firing continued from another section.
People were pissed off about the way the rebels had used a white flag and deceived them. Many people had been killed because of that. So, when they finally entered the barracks and saw an officer surrender, they shot him. It was a logical reaction, wasn't it? In the courtyards, I saw a number of corpses, of course. Some of the soldiers had resisted, and they were executed just like that. There's no doubt about it.
Unrestrained vengeance. Spontaneous execution of the enemy. This, in the early months, was the way of the Civil War. Many defenders of the Republic set themselves outside its law and sought a revolutionary justice out of the barrel of a gun. The uprising was defeated in 5 out of Spain's 7 largest cities. They stayed loyal to the Republic. It was different with the conservative Catholic peasantry. They supported the army coup. There were 2 Spains now. Republicans held the north and a vast area southeast of Madrid. The rebels held the area north of the capital and the southwest. From both zones, columns of troops and armed civilians rushed to confront the opposition. The tactics of both sides were crude, informed only by passion. From Madrid and Barcelona to defend the Republic, from the conservative hinterland to crush it.
Once they had more or less cleared Madrid of resistance, they decided to go out to the mountain passes to halt the advance of the column heading our way. And it was all still very festive. The first days it was like a great party. A party in honor of the revolution, you might say. And I remember how people called each other. Early in the morning you would hear voices. Manolo, Paco, Antonio, and the windows would open. I'm coming. And he'd do up his overalls, put on his cap, fix his cartridge belt, and climb into the lorry and head off to the hills to fight the war, and then come back for the night. They used to return home to sleep. And the women would say, Paco's gone off to the front today, and I made him a potato tortilla, and he's taken a few bottles of wine. People went off to the front as though it was a picnic.
The casual gaiety of Republican volunteers from Madrid was matched by the enthusiasm with which civilians who supported the rebels set off to try to capture the city. Among them was Juan Crespo.
Nos comprábamos el monos, que era el uniforme, íbamos al cuartel, allí nos daban...
We bought overalls for our uniform. We went to the barracks where they gave us our ammunition belts and the rifles.
Un camión y a tomar café a Madrid. No, era, pues, era una farsa.
We thought it was going to be such a walkover that we joked we were going for a coffee in Madrid. Like someone going to a dance. Because that's what it was for us. As well as being a bit of a trip, it was going to a dance. It was as if there was a competition between the columns setting off from different points. From Burgos, from Pamplona, from Valladolid, from Salamanca. We were all heading for Madrid, and the race was to see who would get there first, as if there were only 300 cups of coffee waiting. We came back from the front whenever we liked. Then we'd hand in our rifles and calmly go home. Nobody stopped us because we weren't dressed as soldiers. And we weren't soldiers. We weren't formally enlisted. Of course, that soon ended. General Mola turned us into soldiers, put us under military authority. But at the beginning, it didn't exist.
As the man said, General Mola had to turn his insurgent irregulars into some kind of disciplined body. They became one force and called themselves Nationalist. On the other side, of course, the Republicans too had to become a proper fighting force, but that was more difficult. Each political party or trade union recruited its own volunteers into the militia units. Anarchist columns under leaders like Durruti fiercely defended their independence. By definition, anarchists had to oppose organized militarism. They would defend the Republic against the fascists, but not at the expense of surrendering to any sort of authority, otherwise they could hardly be anarchists. In any case, defending the Republic was not enough. After successfully resisting the army's coup in the cities, they now took the offensive. The war provided the opportunity to achieve a freedom and justice that they argued was impossible under bourgeois democracy. They claimed that war and revolution were inseparable.
War had been imposed on us because we were being attacked, and the revolution was to rebuild society according to our ideals. We weren't going to give our lives for capitalism. We were giving them for the revolution. This is how I felt about it, and most of the others.